Okay, this is the thing though. I hate sleeping in class. I don't even want to get caught sleeping in class. But when people see people trying to sleep in class, it just makes me wonder what the hell's going on. Well, what the hell's going on here is that nobody cares about their education. And throughout all these years, we've been focusing on education-related topics from sleeping in class to truancy. But how about this? Imagine you're a student. Your teacher tells you to get some rest before class, to rest your heads before class. Then all of a sudden you wake up alone. Your child wakes up alone. As a furious parent, you found out that, you know, your child was left alone in a classroom, no adults, no other kids, no supervision. Your child had to walk home, flag down a police officer and tell them what the hell was going on. Well, this is exactly what happened in Clayton County. Take a look.
The lights were off and the door was open.
7-year-old Oliver Stillwell says he woke up to find the lights off and his classroom empty at Suter Elementary Tuesday. He says he fell asleep in class right before dismissal.
I don't know why they didn't wake me up. My teacher could have waken me up.
He says the buses were gone. So he set off for home about 20 to 25 minutes away on foot. Were you worried about the traffic coming?
Oh no, I was on the sidewalk. I wasn't on the road because I don't want to get ran over.
He waved for an officer to stop and help.
I told him, hey, can you help me out to get back home?
The officer interrupted a call he was headed to drop the second grader off at home. His mother had wondered why he wasn't there. When the officer told her where he found Oliver, she was livid.
And I was like, why is he walking on Lake Jellicoe Road?
Lindsay Barrett went to the school. She says his teacher says Oliver was sent to another classroom to prepare for dismissal.
So they called the other teacher in, and she said that she never even seen Oliver that day.
Barrett says there's no way her child should have been left in a class while everyone left. And she says someone should have noticed he wasn't on the bus.
It's taking everything for me to stay calm. Yes. And all I get is, I'm sorry.
Riding in a cop car is something Oliver won't soon forget.
I was picked up right here, like right here.
Barrett says she has tried to contact the school district to find out how this happened and how to make sure it doesn't happen again, but she says she hasn't heard from anyone. I reached out to the school district. A spokesperson told me he has shared my questions about this incident with leadership for possible feedback. We're live in Clayton County in Jonesboro. Tom Jones, Channel 2 Action.
This does not make sense, clearly. It doesn't make sense. The thing is, you have to make sure that this doesn't happen to your child.
Chevy trucks.
I wouldn't. I would not even let my nephew walk home. If he needed a ride home, all he had to do was just flag somebody down and say, hey, I need to get home. It's a great thing he flagged down that police officer, because if he didn't, he would have known his sorry. The mom would have been very concerned. So I'm glad that something had to be done, because if something wasn't done, we wouldn't be here talking about this, would we? Well, probably not. Raise you all up just a little bit. There you go. But everybody else has to understand where people are coming from these days, because nobody else wants to deal with the fact that nobody wants to be disciplined or be held responsible for their own actions. You see, it goes like this. Actions always have consequences, no matter what happens. Again, not everybody knows the whole deal here. it'd be like trying to fight with somebody about a bird. But then you won't even know about the bird until you found the bird. So it leads you to wonder, what more can be done to prevent this from ever happening again? Remember that video we showed you all about the parents that were concerned about their child's safety because, they couldn't get on the bus without the sister? Well, the parents were furious and frustrated. They had to just go down to school to sort this out. It was one of the first times one of the school administrators said he's ever heard about it. So it just leads you to wonder what more can be done. We'll keep you posted on the story and let you know what happens. Still ahead, a school shooting that happened 26 years ago with one mother speaking out for the very first time after that horrific shooting that happened years ago. Also, gun manufacturers and smart guns. Basically, those two stories are going to be talking about kids, guns, and violence from one little girl who loved to watch Barney. Next, 2 Project Baltimore stories, all about closing schools and something I think that not even I want to discuss. So please stay with us. Persistently dangerous. That's a term, that's a word, those are the 2 words that not one person wants to hear. But there are 3 schools in Baltimore County or in different counties in the state of Maryland that could even ask, why are these schools persistently dangerous? No one knows for sure, but as we're about to show you, those 3 schools that are persistently dangerous can be shut down. Here's Chris Papps.
Persistently dangerous is a term under Maryland law that's used to describe a school with serious problems. A school is labeled persistently dangerous if, for 3 consecutive school years, the total number of student suspensions and/or expulsions for more than 10 days for certain violent acts equals 2.5% or more of the total number of students enrolled in the school. There are roughly 1,400 public schools in Maryland. Currently, 0 are considered persistently dangerous. But that could soon change. According to the Maryland State Department of Education, 3 Baltimore City public schools are on probation and could be deemed persistently dangerous beginning next school year. The schools are Collington Square Elementary, Mergenthaler, and Renaissance Academy.
Schools don't want to be labeled as persistently dangerous.
Ed Kitlowski was a teacher for 33 years in Baltimore County. Project Baltimore spoke with him in 2018. At the time, there were also 0 schools labeled persistently dangerous in the state, which Kitlowski said is intentional.
Sounds good for a school principal to say, we've had no suspensions at our school, implying that behavior is really good. Whereas, we know internally behavior is it's getting worse.
If a Maryland school is labeled persistently dangerous, families are notified, corrective plans are drafted, and students are offered a chance to transfer. Kitlowski says principals know the persistently dangerous formula, and when a school gets close to those numbers, principals may just stop disciplining students to stay off the list. The last time a Maryland school was labeled persistently dangerous was 2015. That year, Maritime Industries Academy in Baltimore City was given the designation from the Maryland State Department of Education. Maritime closed the following year. Baltimore City Schools, in a statement to Fox 45, explained it prioritizes the safety and well-being of all students and staff by enforcing district policies and state and federal laws while working closely with city law enforcement to provide coordinated security measures, including increased patrols when needed, These layered efforts reflect our ongoing commitment to protecting our school communities and maintaining safe spaces for learning. Does your child attend one of the 3 Baltimore City schools on the verge of being labeled persistently dangerous? We want to hear from you. Are you concerned about the safety of your child? Call our hotline, send me an email, follow us on social media, and to foxbaltimore.com to follow our progress. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
So those 3 are dangerous, but we'll let you know what happens. Now, there are new education bills that are being formed, that are being reformed, and that could mean huge safety.
To light the way
That could
to
mean
literacy
those
success.
laws could be changed as what's best for the child. Once again,
Maryland
Chris
2026
Pabst.
is now in session and ready for the transaction of business.
The 2026 session for the Maryland General Assembly is underway. Over 90 days, hundreds of pieces of legislation, many of which involve education, will be debated and voted on by lawmakers, with some of the bills being a direct result of Project Baltimore reporting.
I'm as optimistic about a bill that I've ever been in 12 years of session.
Baltimore County Delegate Rick Metzger introduced one of those pieces of legislation
Yes,
he called the Bowen-Levy Airway Clearing Device Act.
and I've never been more honored to put a person's name on a bill than I am in this one. I'm very proud.
If passed, Metzger's bill would mandate all public schools in Maryland obtain at least one airway clearing device. Metzger drafted this bill following this Fox 45 News investigation. We found even after the 2019 choking death of Bowen-Levy, an Anne Arundel County Public School student, many Maryland schools were still understaffed when it came to caring for students with disabilities. Metzger's bill is designed to help provide another option to save a life.
I absolutely do not feel like there's going to be opposition. We're saving somebody's life. We're giving a teacher a tool in the toolbox.
I think that we have a chance to pass something that's meaningful.
Carroll County Delegate April Rose has also introduced legislation following Project Baltimore's reporting, this time concerning how public schools are funded. Under current state law, public school funding is based on the number of students enrolled on one day, September 30th. That one-day count determines most of the funding a school receives the following year. But in 2024, Fox 45 found nearly 11,000 instances of students who were enrolled and later could not be located by their schools and were labeled whereabouts unknown. But most of those students were still funded, meaning taxpayers gave schools around $168 million to educate students who were not in class.
But if we are clearly spending money to educate students that are not in the schoolroom, that's a very easy, I think, discussion to have.
Rose's legislation is called the Education Funding Accuracy Act, which would change Maryland's one-day enrollment count to a two-day count, once in September and once in the spring. School funding would then be determined by an average of the two counts.
I'm hopeful that since we're talking about affordability and accountability, that seems to be the theme this year of this legislative session, I think this bill is perfectly aligned to work on both of those issues.
While Rose and Metzger's bills impact the entire state, Baltimore County State Senator Carl Jackson has introduced legislation to address a local issue.
I think we're in a time now where taxpayers want to know how their money is being spent.
In Baltimore County Public Schools, $1.4 billion, roughly 50% of the district's total budget, comes from Baltimore County. But as of now, the Inspector General for Baltimore County does not have jurisdiction to investigate the school system. Jackson's proposed legislation seeks to change that.
I think it has a good chance to pass.
Montgomery County's Inspector General has jurisdiction over the school system. Prince George's County Public Schools has its own Inspector General. Jackson's bill would give Baltimore County Council the authority to expand the IG's jurisdiction to include BCPS. Opponents, such as Baltimore County Councilman Julian Jones, have argued Maryland already has an Inspector General for Education, and BCPS does not need additional oversight. Jackson disagrees, and he thinks taxpayers do too.
I understand that there's a state OIG, but the state OIG has jurisdiction over 20, we have 24 jurisdictions. Having the localized OIG have oversight over BCPS, give it a more localized focus, and that's what we want.
Project Baltimore will be in Annapolis as these bills make their way through the legislature. We will provide you with updates as they become available. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
We'll stay on the case in this story.
Project Baltimore's reporting has had an impact in previous Maryland legislative sessions. Multiple laws have been written in response to what they've uncovered. First, in 2021, then Governor Larry Hogan signed a new law making Maryland the first state in the country to ban registered sex offenders from being students inside public schools. This was in response to a Project Baltimore investigation that found a 21-year-old convicted sex offender was attending Parkville High School in Baltimore County. At the time, teachers, students, and parents were not told that a sex offender was in the building. Then in 2024, Governor Wes Moore signed a bill with language banning certain juvenile sex offenders from attending school in person. The specific language used in the bill was introduced following a Project Baltimore investigation that found a 15-year-old who was on probation for a second-degree rape in Harford County was attending Patterson High School in Baltimore City. The new law mandates that school systems provide alternative means of education, such as virtual learning, for registered adult and juvenile sex offenders. If you have a story about public education for Project Baltimore, you can call their hotline, send an email, or message them on social media.
So on a future episode, I'll let you know what happened. So those laws that was reported by Project, those issues that were reported by Project Baltimore have made laws and passed. So I'm really glad that something had to be done. Someone stood up to the issue. All right, kids, guns, and violence. What happened 26 years ago when one child decided to open fire and shoot a little girl? Next, one parent spoke out to Chris Hansen many, many years ago about what happened the day that her daughter got shot by a first grader, and why are smart guns not being used to prevent any accidental shootings from happening. Stay with us. Because that Uvalde trial happened and what the jury had to say in the officer's case about what happened in Uvalde, we're going to spend some time talking about guns, violence, and children shooting these schools. Shooting up the schools. Well, 26 years ago, there was a shooting that happened in one state. It was to where a first grader got the gun and he shot the little girl. What possessed a child to do such a thing? Later on, in just a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from the mother, who tells a story about what happened when her daughter got shot by that first grader. Smart guns are a way to prevent children from ever reaching a gun. But gun manufacturers said, nope, we don't want that. Tonight, you're going to meet some characters in the story who say that when they try to come up with smart guns, a Washington D.C. based organization decided to shut them down. Why would they do that after that horrific day at school? Here's Chris Hansen.
They told me that someone had got hurt. My teacher just told us to stay calm. We did.
It was another painful lesson in the ABCs of gun violence. At an elementary school near Flint, Michigan, a first-grade boy pulls out a pistol and fires a shot, killing a classmate. As a community grieves, a nation wonders how a child barely old enough to ride a two-wheeler got his hands on a gun. The very next day near Pittsburgh, a man allegedly with a racial grudge and a gun goes on a shooting spree that leaves 3 people dead. And last year it seemed as if every month someone who shouldn't have had a gun got one and used it in a series of bloody killing sprees. It's not surprising that in the wake of these tragedies, public opinion polls showed a majority of Americans wanted tighter controls on guns. In fact, at least 24 U.S. cities took aggressive action and filed suit against gun makers, seeking billions in damages and sweeping changes in the way guns are made and distributed.
We can fight them tooth and nail. It's going to cost a lot of money, and a lot of companies are going to go out of business. Or we can sit down and try to work through these problems.
For a few months last spring, Bob Ricker was executive director of the American Shooting Sports Council, the ASSC, and represented many of the gun makers being sued.
Hey, Assemblyman Bob Ricker, how you doing?
He believed he had the key to an historic breakthrough.
Hey, Richard.
As a lobbyist, Ricker knew the ins and outs of politics and just how far the gun industry could go in making concessions. And perhaps most important, because he used to work for the National Rifle Association, the NRA, he knew how to accomplish his mission without running afoul of the NRA's powerful leadership. Or at least he thought he did.
I was at the White House 2 years ago and met with President Clinton.
Ricker says he was given the green light to negotiate with the lawyers and mayors suing the gun companies he represented, and that he even had permission to attend a White House conference on youth violence and meet with President Clinton, a man hardliners consider the most anti-gun president in history.
What I told the President, the First Lady, and the Vice President was that the ASSC under my leadership was going to be open-minded, that all issues are on the table for discussion.
Ricker says that soon they were discussing the things gun control advocates wanted and the gun industry had in the past resisted.
Have a good feel.
Things like limits on the number of guns sold to one person and restrictions on how guns are sold by dealers. There was even agreement on developing smart gun technology, systems that would prevent a gun from being fired by anyone other than the owner.
We were able to reach an agreement on basically 5 points with the administration. And they were positions that were unanimously adopted by the ASSC Board of Directors.
It appeared that Ricker, the gun manufacturers, and the government were on the verge of a momentous agreement, an agreement that could help keep guns out of the wrong hands while ensuring the survival of the gun industry.
The Smith & Wesson position is one of doing those things that are required to make the company survive and to make it move forward.
Ed Schultz, chief executive of Smith & Wesson, the country's largest handgun maker, has made no secret of his desire for compromise. He says that making safer guns in exchange for dropping the lawsuits could ultimately save his company.
Certainly, it's in the best interest of the company to do those things necessary to ensure its survival.
But Ricker says the deal he was working on for Smith & Wesson and the other major handgun makers suddenly blew up. Last summer, his organization was taken over by another trade group with close ties to the NRA. Suddenly, Ricker was out of a job.
Did the NRA force you out? I think that they were the prime mover.
And Ricker was not the first industry negotiator who says he was brought down by the NRA in the crossfire created by the city lawsuits.
Good morning.
A little over 2 years ago, Ricker's predecessor, Richard Feldman, also thought making nice with the White House and getting in front of the gun debate was good PR and good policy. When it looked as though Congress might mandate child safety locks on every gun sold, Feldman assembled a group of manufacturers who agreed to stand with the president in the Rose Garden and announced they would all voluntarily ship their guns with the locks. The Guns N' Roses strategy seemed to make sense to virtually everyone involved in the issue. Gun control advocates, gun makers, everyone, according to Ricker, except the NRA.
They did not like the idea that Richard Feldman had put together this deal with the most anti-gun president that's ever been.
Did you get threats?
There were verbal threats that certain people's jobs were in jeopardy and that certain individuals were going to see to it that other individuals lost their job.
And in fact, Feldman was eventually fired by the gun makers he represented. Both Ricker and Feldman say the NRA's fingerprints were all over the trigger.
Why would they do that? I think you would have to ask Jim Baker at the NRA.
James J. Baker, marksman, hunter, and the brains behind the NRA's massive lobbying efforts around the country, says Ricker is wrong. He says Ricker and Feldman lost their jobs because the NRA and gun makers thought they were sellouts.
Bob Ricker told us that you said, after the Rose Garden presentation with the Clinton administration, that you were going to, quote-unquote, get Feldman for that.
That's ridiculous. I never said anything of the kind.
Is Ricker lying?
If he says that I said that, he is. But if you're asking me, do I think Richard Feldman was wrong-headed in terms of the way he approached these lawsuits? Absolutely. And if you're asking me, did I counsel anybody in industry that would listen to me and tell them that Richard Feldman was not helping him, he was hurting him? That's correct.
Baker says that in principle, the NRA supports reasonable gun control proposals, such as trigger locks and smart gun technology, even though in the past they have called those ideas either dangerous or potential infringements on the Second Amendment right to bear arms.
Depends on how the legislation is drafted. The devil, like all things, is in the detail.
Baker says Ricker's efforts simply played into the enemy's hands and encouraged more lawsuits.
To negotiate with people that are only interested in money is ridiculous.
Do you see the possibility that faced with these lawsuits and faced with the potential of spending thousands of dollars per hour every day defending these lawsuits, that some gun manufacturers could go out of business?
I think there's a conceivable possibility that some will.
Does that serve your membership?
The lawsuits don't serve our membership, but negotiating with a bunch of legal sharks who are only interested in their next fee doesn't suit our membership or the Constitution or gun owners generally at all either.
And in the world of what Baker calls legal sharks, this man might be considered Jaws. John Cole is a well-connected Washington, D.C. personal injury attorney. He was among the lead lawyers who sued the big tobacco companies and ultimately brokered a $240 billion settlement to help states pay the cost of smoking-related diseases. But Cole and his associates say that unlike big tobacco, the gun companies don't have deep pockets. Cole insists what his clients in this case care about is change, not money.
What's it going to take to settle these cases?
Reasonableness. Let's try to get smart guns, number one. Let's make them safer. Let's make them child-proof. Change your corporate culture to work towards safe guns.
Cole says the gun makers represented by Ricker seemed willing to do just that. That is, he says, until the NRA got involved behind the scenes to oust Ricker and scuttle the negotiations.
How could the NRA control whether he works there or whether he's fired?
Because the manufacturers believe the NRA is powerful enough to boycott them and make life miserable for them.
And according to Cole, that's not just theory. He says the NRA's influence among activist gun owners through its magazines and internet sites is legendary. Colt reportedly lost millions in sales 2 years ago after the company announced it was aggressively developing smart guns, and gun owners boycotted the company. Gun control advocates believe the NRA helped fuel the boycott with suggestions that smart guns would be unreliable, more expensive, and possibly lead to a ban on traditional weapons.
I know most of the CEOs of these companies, and I don't know any of them that are scared by our members. Our members are their customers.
Baker says that gun owners don't need anyone to tell them what to do, but he says he's happy so many gun owners apparently agree with him and become dues-paying members of the NRA.
Would you ever suggest through your publications that your members go elsewhere when it comes to buying weapons?
I don't think that we've done that. I think we've reported the state of negotiations and what our take is on them, and our members are free to do what they please.
Critics have said that some of these manufacturers would be willing to negotiate and have been willing to negotiate, but have gotten scared because they've run afoul with the NRA.
I think that's a ludicrous suggestion.
Fine.
It just is, because we have done nothing to try to intimidate gun manufacturers, They're free-minded people, and they do exactly what they please without any prompting from me, one way or the other.
But after last week's shootings, the NRA and the gun manufacturers find themselves political targets.
Good morning, Katie.
Last Thursday, President Clinton appeared on the Today Show and called for a White House summit with congressional leaders to resurrect gun control legislation that was introduced after the massacre at Columbine High School last spring.
It's an unbelievable thing after what we saw clearly at Columbine and all the problems that were there. That 8 months have gone by and the Congress can't act. And the reason they can't act is because the heat the NRA has put on them.
That heat is never hotter than in an election year. And because James Baker and the NRA can mobilize a lot of votes, new gun control legislation may be a long shot.
There is no question about it when people make ludicrous statements regarding firearms laws, firearms regulation, when they attempt to infringe the right to keep and bear arms, that our members get upset and more people join to protect their rights. There is no question about it, and I'm glad they do.
For more on the gun laws in your state and how they might be affected by federal gun control proposals, visit our website. The address is...
And we all know that this state is a gun-free zone. When we come back, she loved to watch movies and she loved to watch Barney and be around other kids. He liked to play with toys and watch violence on television. Well, it's time to meet the little girl when we come back. Stay with us. Well, it has been nearly 26 years since that horrific shooting. We're still talking about guns, violence, and guns, violence, and kids. But the question is, how did this 6-year-old get his hands on the gun? And why would he shoot that little girl? Tonight, you're going to hear stories of the little boy, and you're going to get to hear for the very first time the mother of that horrific school shooting speak out for the very first time. Here again, Chris Hansen.
Never in a million years could I imagine this. Ever.
I want to know how a 6-year-old boy got a gun.
She wasn't at the wrong place at the wrong time. She was in the right place at the wrong time.
You expect when you see children on a school bus that they're being carried safely home. But not last week. Not at Buell Elementary School, just outside of Flint, Michigan.
I'm a baby.
When these bus doors opened, the faces of innocents were painted with terror. Children coming to grips with what they just witnessed.
This is an NBC 25 News special report.
There was a shooting at Buell Elementary School in the Beecher School District.
A first grader, a boy you'd expect to be carrying Pokemon cards, was instead packing a pistol like this one and had used it to shoot a classmate. Parents ran to the school searching for their kids. Each second, agony, as mothers and fathers were forced to wait.
We're going to need everybody to stand behind the gate. We're going to get your kids out to you within a few minutes, okay?
One by one, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders scooped up in their parents' arms and whisked away with a thankful prayer. How could this happen? How does a 6-year-old even get a gun, much less kill with it? Who was he? And how did these two young lives intersect with such tragic consequences? Tonight, for the first time, you'll hear the story from some of the people who knew these children best.
She was a beautiful little girl.
Kayla Rowland was just 6 years old. Her mother, Veronica, remembers a girl who was gentle, kind, and well-liked.
She loved to be around everybody. She loved animals. She loved people. She just loved life.
Kayla, or KK, liked blue jeans and t-shirts more than pretty pink dresses, and she was not above getting into a little mischief now and again.
Yeah, she loved all kind of jokes. She used to love going around saying, I joked you, I joked you. That was her favorite word, I joked you. That's how she would say it. And she was always smiling, always laughing.
Each school day, Kayla, her brother, and her sister would walk 5 blocks to the elementary school. Did Kayla enjoy school? Was she having any problems in school?
She enjoyed school. She had friends there. Just like to play with them.
But one little boy was mad at Kayla. It should have been much ado about nothing, the kind of argument little children often get into. But later, out on the playground, the first grade boy started making threats.
He says, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
The kids in the neighborhood knew the boy. Even in first grade, he'd earned a reputation. But it's a long way from playground bully to killer. Last Tuesday, the boy brought a .32 caliber semi-automatic handgun to school. Just before 10 a.m., as the children were lining up to go to computer class, witnesses say the boy aimed the gun at Kayla and said, I don't like you, and pulled the trigger.
He turned around and he shot her in the neck.
It's the voice of Kayla's teacher on the 911 emergency tape that depicts the horror of the day. Kayla's mother, Veronica, was at work 45 minutes away when she got the call from her father-in-law that Kayla was in the hospital. She had had an accident.
What did you think he was talking about when he said accident?
A bump on the head.
Somebody fell off a swing set or something.
There she fell. She maybe broke her arm, maybe her leg. And that was it. And he said she was at Hurley Hospital. And I told him, okay, I'm on my way. I'm leaving.
A few minutes later, Kayla's father, who lives apart from her mother, heard the devastating news.
I turn around and it's right on the TV.
He rushed to the hospital, only to learn Kayla had passed away.
I don't wish for anybody in this world to hold their dead baby's hand in a hospital being shot by a 6-year-old boy.
The alleged killer lived just down the road from Kayla's home. Alleged killer. It's an inconceivable label to place on a little boy weighing no more than 40 pounds.
Veronica, I would have to believe that one of the first emotions after sheer disbelief would have to be anger.
I was a little angry because I wanted answers. I just seen 2 babies. That's all. I just keep seeing 2 babies. And it's hard to be angry at a child.
A child who lived in this ramshackle house with relatives. The night of the shooting, police raided the home and confiscated what they suspect is cocaine and a shotgun. Amidst the booze bottles and filth, the boy's school progress report, unsigned by any adult. Police say the handgun he used to shoot Kayla had been stolen just 3 months earlier. The boy told them he found it under some blankets. 3 bullets in the clip.
I'll never be over this. Never.
While Michigan law is silent on whether or not a 6-year-old can be charged criminally, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that any child under the age of 7 is not mentally capable of forming criminal intent. Arthur Bush is the county prosecutor.
It's a little guy that believes in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. He's not capable of remorse because he doesn't understand what he did wrong.
The boy, who has admitted to police that he shot Kayla, is now living with an aunt.
Do you blame the little boy who shot your daughter?
I can't, at first they didn't, I mean, because he told, he made a suggestion that he was going to kill her. So, the way I thought, I think that he knew what he was doing.
So who's to blame for this tragedy?
I feel bad for the family.
The boy's father, Dedrick Owens, had earlier been convicted of burglary and is back in jail for violating parole. The boy's mother has lived a troubled life as well. She and all 3 of her children were evicted from their nearby home. She had moved in with her brother, leaving him to care for her children while she worked. The family had been there just a week before the shooting. The family friend who left the gun unguarded has been charged with involuntary manslaughter. The boy's father and mother have been charged with neglect.
In the transition, maybe she didn't make a good judgment.
Community activist Jacqueline Jordan says blaming the mother overlooks the realities of this neighborhood, where people work hard to make a living, some struggling while others barely survive. More than 82% of the children attending school here are poor enough to qualify for the free lunch program.
I know her as a loving mom. In fact, she has been more loving and more caring than a lot of mothers that I know that have never had to experience some of the things that she did growing up as a kid.
And now this community is asking itself some tough questions. Why didn't anyone reach out to this obviously troubled child? And how can it prevent such tragedies from happening again? Attorney Jerry Weingarten represents Kayla's mother.
I want to make sure that the people understand something out there. We are going to leave no stone unturned in our investigation into this tragedy.
Separately, Kayla's father has hired high-profile attorney Jeffrey Feiger, who represented Dr. Jack Kevorkian. Feiger lays blame squarely at the feet of the gun manufacturers.
Every single gun manufacturer executive knows that those guns are going to go into a percentage of homes where there are children, and that the potential exists that the child will use it.
Kayla's mother says she is overwhelmed by the incredible support from her neighborhood and from around the world. But she will forever be a mother who lost her child.
What has this tragedy taken away from you?
I feel like a part of my heart is just buried with my daughter. There's a part of me missing that I don't think I'd ever get back.
And there's a part of one family that misses her mom for good. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Buck Days is coming soon, and that's going to mean you're going to be riding some roller coasters. Get ready, hang on tight, and hang on to your hat. We're going to show you some roller coasters provided by Discovery Channel. Here's Lisa Rudolph for tonight's Dateline Give Me a Break Discovery Channel exclusive.
It's a sensation that many love to fear. The anticipation of something really big. And the bigger they are, the faster they fall. Take Goliath in Valencia, California, a roller coaster of monstrous proportions with its record-breaking 255-foot drop. Goliath was the first thrill ride to zoom into the new millennium, a year that's seen an explosion of innovative thrill rides. Today's rides are looking less like traditional roller coasters and more like spectacular stunts in a movie. Like Medusa in Jackson, New Jersey, it's one of the first floorless roller coasters. And if you haven't reached your roller coaster high yet, maybe you should check out the Skyscraper in Orlando, Florida.
It's like hooking yourself on the end of a propeller that's as tall as a 16-story building, flying through the air, and then doing it all backwards.
Skyscraper designer Peter Kockelman makes a living trying to find the edge between thrill and sheer terror. His appetite for the extreme began at the end of a rope.
First time we bungee jumped, it just scared the daylights out of me. It was just, I'm alive.
And in that adrenaline-charged moment, Peter's exhilaration surpassed his fear. This mechanical engineer wanted to build a ride to share that incredible experience with others.
You can sit in front of a TV with a box of Cheetos any day, and it's not a memorable experience. These rides give you an opportunity to go out and feel something that you can't feel anywhere else, except on a ride to the moon.
Peter's Skyscraper may not reach the moon, but it does get you a little closer.
Look at that. Look how high up we were.
I'm afraid of heights, so this is something my shrink says would be good for overcoming the fear.
Therapy at 70 miles an hour, 160 feet up in the sky.
Oh man, this is really intense.
Most people would describe it as a Ferris wheel on steroids. It's a high-speed, high G-force flight machine.
And on some of these rides, you experience even stronger G-forces than what an astronaut feels lifting off into outer space. A 3G blast.
The fun of the G-force is the changes that you experience between staying at 1G when the ride starts accelerating to 4.5 Gs as the ride's progressing, and then coming back to a halt at the end of it is just a feeling that just zaps every sensor in your body.
In the 1920s, they might not have been talking about G-forces, but chances are they felt them. The Cyclone in Coney Island, New York, made its debut in 1927, one of the first coasters in this country. Today, it may be an historical landmark, but the old-fashioned wooden coaster still can thrill. But if it's something new you're after, chances are you'll find it. This year, coaster enthusiasts can choose from an unprecedented variety of rides. For those who like it hot, there's now a fiery ride called the Volcano at King's Dominion in Virginia. And if you go for cool, a journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld in Florida should do the trick. With each new ride, the envelope of exhilaration gets pushed a little further. After all, the sky's the limit.
We are kind of stretching our imaginations and saying, wow, wouldn't it be neat to do this?
Want to see more? You can watch Thrills, Chills, and Spills Memorial Day on Discovery Channel.
Wow, Thrills, Chills, and Spills. That'd be something cool to look for. We'll be right back. Coming up next Friday on the broadcast, the trial that happened last week of one officer in Uvalde who was charged with over 20 counts of murder and 29 counts of child endangerment. Why the jury voted not guilty instead of guilty, and what I have to say about what happened during that time, and why he shouldn't have been given the guilty plea. That whole hour all about the trial is happening coming up on next Friday's Give Me a Break. That's all for this edition of Give Me a Break Friday. I'll see you again next week. Follow us here on YouTube and Give Me a Break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. And as always, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.